The day I discovered my father had been lying to us for years started like any other ordinary morning. There was no dramatic warning, no obvious sign that our entire understanding of our family was about to change. It began with a phone call from a stranger. At first, I assumed it was a mistake, but within 10 minutes, I realized something terrifying. The man I trusted most in my life had been hiding the truth from all of us. Stories like this often appear on exposed stories media, where people share the hidden truths inside their families. But when the story belongs to your own life, it feels completely different. Because the moment you realize someone you love has been lying for years, nothing feels stable anymore. To understand what happened, you need to understand who my father was. Growing up, my father was the person everyone admired. He was calm, responsible, and deeply respected in our community. For most of my childhood, he worked as a regional manager for a logistics company. He believed strongly in discipline and responsibility. Our family lived a comfortable but modest life. My mother managed the household finances carefully. My father handled the larger financial decisions. Together they created the impression of stability. Looking back now, I realize how powerful that impression was. Because stability can hide many things. When a family believes everything is under control, no one thinks to look deeper. My father encouraged that belief. He often spoke about long-term planning. He said the most important thing in life was financial security. He wanted to ensure our family would never struggle the way he had during his childhood. For many years, we believed he was succeeding. Our home improved gradually. My parents replaced their old car with a newer one. Family vacations became slightly more frequent. From the outside, everything looked normal. But sometimes the first signs of deception appear quietly. The first unusual moment happened during my father's birthday dinner in the year 2019. My mother asked him about a financial document that had arrived in the mail. It appeared to be related to a loan. My father laughed immediately. He said the bank must have sent it by mistake. He explained that companies often generate automated letters. The explanation sounded reasonable. No one questioned it. But a few weeks later, another document arrived. This time it was addressed directly to my father. My mother mentioned it casually during dinner. Again, my father dismissed it quickly. He said it was connected to an old business account that had already been closed. Looking back now, that was the moment when the first real lie entered our home. But at the time, none of us realized it. Because my father had always been honest. Or at least, that was what we believed. The years continued passing. Our lives remained mostly unchanged. But small inconsistencies slowly appeared. Occasionally, my father received phone calls he took outside the house. Sometimes he seemed distracted during family conversations. Once or twice, my mother mentioned that certain bills were arriving from unfamiliar companies. Each time, my father had an explanation. And each explanation sounded logical enough to believe. Trust makes people patient. It makes them accept answers without searching for more. But eventually, something happened that forced us to look closer. That phone call I mentioned earlier, the one that changed everything. The call came from a financial investigator. At first, I thought he had contacted the wrong person. But the investigator confirmed my full name and address. Then he asked a question that made my stomach drop. He asked if I was aware of several businesses registered under my father's name. Businesses connected to large financial debts. In that moment, the comfortable story I believed about my father began to fall apart. Because as far as I knew, my father owned no businesses at all. The phone call from the investigator stayed in my mind for the rest of the day. At first, I wanted to believe there had been some kind of mistake. My father had never mentioned owning any businesses. He had always described himself as a regular employee working for a logistics company. But the investigator sounded certain. He explained that several companies were registered under my father's name. Each one was connected to financial activity and large outstanding debts. I thanked him for the information and ended the call. But the moment the conversation ended, a heavy feeling settled in my chest. Something about the situation didn't make sense. That evening, I began searching public business records online. It only took a few minutes to find the first company. The name was unfamiliar, but the registration documents listed my father as the primary owner. My hands felt cold as I continued searching. There wasn't just one company. There were 4. Each one had been created over the past 8 years, and each one was connected to loans or financial disputes. The more I read, the more confused I became. My father had never spoken about running businesses. Our family had never seen any signs of extra wealth. If these companies existed, where had the money gone? That question kept repeating in my mind. The next morning, I visited my parents' house. My father was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee. Everything looked normal. Too normal. For a moment, I considered saying nothing, but the truth had already begun revealing itself. So I asked him directly. I asked if he owned any businesses. My father paused, just for a second. Then he smiled and said no. He explained that some people mistakenly register businesses using incorrect information. He insisted the situation was probably a simple administrative error. His explanation sounded calm, but something about his reaction felt different. For the first time in my life, I sensed hesitation in his voice. Later that day, I continued investigating. I contacted the investigator again and asked for more details. He explained that the companies were connected to several real estate investment projects. Large loans had been taken to fund those developments, but the projects had failed. Investors had lost money, and now the debts were being pursued through legal channels. When I asked how much money was involved, he told me the number: more than $2 million. For a moment, I couldn't speak. My father, the quiet man who always spoke about financial discipline, was connected to debts larger than anything our family had ever seen. That was when the truth began forming in my mind. My father had been living a secret financial life for years, and none of us had known. But the most shocking discovery came a few days later. One of the companies listed a co-owner, a name I recognized immediately. It was my father's longtime business friend, a man who had occasionally visited our home over the years, someone my father described as a trusted partner. That discovery explained something important. My father had not been acting alone. He had entered risky business ventures with someone he trusted, but the ventures had failed, and instead of telling our family the truth, he had hidden everything. For nearly a decade, the confrontation happened 1 week later. My mother was present. So was my younger sister. We sat together in the living room. The documents I printed were spread across the table. My father looked at them silently. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he finally spoke. His voice sounded tired. He admitted the businesses were real. Nearly 10 years earlier, he had partnered with a friend to invest in several real estate developments. At first, the projects seemed promising. The early deals even produced small profits. Encouraged by those results, they borrowed larger amounts of money. They believed the next investments would make them wealthy. But the market changed. The projects failed. Investors demanded repayment, and the debts began growing faster than my father could manage. Instead of telling our family the truth, he made a decision. He decided to hide the losses. He continued working his normal job. He pretended everything was fine, year after year, hoping somehow he would find a way to recover the money. But the situation only became worse. Interest accumulated. Legal problems appeared, and the debts grew larger. My mother sat quietly while he explained everything. I could see the pain in her face, not because of the money, but because the man she trusted most had hidden the truth for so long. When my father finished speaking, the room felt silent. He finally looked at us and said something simple. He said he had been ashamed that his attempt to create a better future had turned into a disaster, ashamed that he had failed the people he loved most. For the first time in years, the secret was gone, but the consequences remained. Over the following months, lawyers and financial advisors helped us understand the situation. Some of the debts were eventually negotiated. Others remained unresolved. Our family had to make difficult adjustments. But something important changed after that night. The lies stopped. For years, secrecy had been the real burden inside our home. Once the truth appeared, we could finally begin dealing with reality. That experience taught me something powerful about success and wealth. Many people believe prosperity comes from taking big risks. They chase opportunities that promise quick rewards. But real stability rarely comes from shortcuts. It comes from honesty, from patience, from understanding that failure should be faced early, not hidden for years. Stories like this are why platforms like Exposed Stories Media exist. They reveal the truths families often keep hidden. Because behind many quiet homes are stories of mistakes, ambition, and the lessons that follow. If this story helped you reflect on trust, responsibility, and the true meaning of success, you may find many more valuable lessons here. Make sure you subscribe to Exposed Stories Media. On this channel, you will hear real stories that reveal hidden truths about life, family, and the decisions that shape our future. Sometimes the most valuable wisdom comes from the stories people were once afraid to tell.